much. This is hashtag Reality with Ashley. Today we're here in Gauteng. We'll be in conversation with the provincial chairperson of EFF here in his office. His name is Nkululeko Dunga. We are sitting with him right now on hashtag Reality with Ashley. Chairperson, my name is Ashley and this is hashtag Reality with Ashley. And thank you very much for your time. But then as a provincial chair, I just want to ask you about one of your historical day, which is a day that you will never forget in your life. The 21st of November 2021, it was a day that you received flowers from the commander-in-chief. The time we were in Tembisa, Winima Dikizela Mandela, it was Siyabonga Rally. The day the people of South Africa started to know that there is someone called Nkululeko Dunga as one of the best fighters in South Africa, but specifically in Gauteng. So I just want to know the mood you feel, like how did you feel that day after being recommended by the commander-in-chief?
Yeah, no, thanks. Greetings to the viewers of the show and greetings to you, Ashley.
Yeah.
We appreciate the platform to interact with society and communities in all the different fields, and this is one of the ways of disseminating information and engagements.
Yes.
More especially when you are in a generation of the capture of the fourth estate, which is the media.
Yes.
You do sway opinions of people, but at the same time you do create an opportunity for alternative means of engagements with society, and that is unfiltered, and I appreciate that. Yeah. So the 21st of November, the 20th of November rather, the EFF had what we call the Siyabonga Rally.
Yeah.
In Winnie Mandela at the Skukuna grounds. We were there to celebrate the victories of the EFF as an economic emancipation movement that has just at the time recently contested local government elections, and we saw sporadic growth.
Yeah.
I mean, the growth patterns are not only in percentage but also in the number of public representatives and councillors that the EFF now has at the time.
Yes.
And it was a momentous occasion for all of us.
Yeah.
At a personal but also as an organization. So the commander-in-chief, having identified the regional command team structure of the EFF in Ekurhuleni, because I was still a chair at that time, was on the premise of acknowledging the structure and the people who did the work and the party agents of the EFF and the ground forces of the EFF. Yes. As opposed to having identified Nkululeko Dunga, because Nkululeko Dunga is just a drop in the ocean of many other revolutionaries that come. It's just you become a face because the stage can only take 30 people there on top. If you were to put everyone else there on top, the stage would collapse. Okay. So it... we appreciated it as a structure. We celebrated it, and indeed, I mean, it was it's always great for the leadership of the organization to acknowledge the hard work that you put in, and we're thankful that we were able to be identified as a collective, you know, as leaders, even in our own personal spaces, in terms of what we have been able to achieve, more especially that there were successes under that particular leadership.
But I just want to interrupt you, because when I listen to you, you keep on making it a generalization, and I want to focus straight on you, because that day the commander-in-chief said, we appreciate Nkululeko Dunga and he must come this side and sit next to the president of EFF, because he's one of the most hardworking fighter here in Ekurhuleni. So I still remember that time he was pointing you out, you were coming closer. Even on your profile pictures in all entire social media platform, you put that you post that picture, because indeed it was a historical day. and the day that you'll never forget in your entire life, because that day is the day that we as the people of South Africa started to know you, and we started to know the name of Dunga. That's why I'm saying I just want you to share with us the mood, the feeling you felt after being given the flowers by the Commander-in-Chief.
Yeah, look, I can never isolate myself from the collective.
Yeah.
Even in us leading,
Yeah.
We lead through collectivism and collective responsibility.
Yes.
Perhaps what we can then say that the greatest and most sound of positive leadership is to be able to marshal those whom you lead.
Yes.
And being a regional chairperson, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You know. So I would never personally take the accolades that the organization would put to me.
Yes.
And take them as personal attributes,
Oh.
as opposed to also understanding that I work with the greater collective.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're going to end up being people who are self-obsessed and self-interested, and the assumption to think that everything revolves around Nkululeko Dunga, who is this glorified individual, who is a kingmaker, a changemaker, and you forget that indeed you are in the position that you find yourself in because of the responsibility that the organization has given you.
Yes.
So in the absence of me being a regional chair and having identified the city of Ekurhuleni fighters for having performed well, is that you would have not known me. You know, even if I was probably the hardest worker ever, but because if I was not leading at the level I was leading at, you would have not known me. But it was a momentous occasion, I won't lie. It's the Commander-in-Chief and the President of the Economic Freedom Fighters. To us is the Kwame Nkrumah. To us is the Steve Biko. To us is Che Guevara of our times, and to be acknowledged and identified and be even in the same presence, in the same stage with him, is therapeutic to what we do on a daily basis in terms of activism. So I genuinely do appreciate the day. Extremely overwhelming, but we understood that it was for a celebration of not just ourselves,
but you recognize that day as one of your historical day. The day that you'll never forget.
Of the organization.
Of the organization. You keep on
but even ourselves, I mean, even for ourselves, as I said, to be on stage with the Commander-in-Chief, to be acknowledged, and for him to, out of the millions of South Africans, out of the thousands and thousands of fighters, and the many problems that the continent and South Africa finds themselves in, to know that there is this particular leader by the name of this individual, to us is something worth acknowledging and celebrating.
Nkululeko Dunga, the chairperson of EFF here in Gauteng, the provincial commander. So, Mr. Chairperson Dunga, I just want to ask you, when did you start to be involved in politics, and how old were you at that time?
I was actually never interested in the political space and politics in general. So when we were in matric, but you know, subconsciously it only happens after, where you start reflecting that perhaps what you have gone through before was political, and you had a political position, but the consciousness was never there. But once you had your consciousness elevated at a later stage, you started realizing that perhaps I was in the political space, but I was just not a politician. You know. So I in high school in 2006, we had a huge fight with the then principal. 2005 actually, we had a huge fight with the then principal called Mrs. Grimm, whom we thought and felt she was extremely racist.
In which school?
In Sanwa Park High School, whom
It's
we
around
thought,
Gauteng.
yes, it's in Gauteng
Okay.
in Boksburg. Ward 43.
Okay.
Ward 43 in
Yeah.
Boksburg.
Yeah.
Whom we thought was extremely racist. So they had what they would call the LEB, the Learners Executive Body.
Yes.
AMA prefects more than anything.
Yeah.
And the allocation of those prefects was the racial profiling thereof was leaning extremely to white people, even those who did not qualify. In high school you have your blazers and then you have your colors. You had white people who had no colors, who had no academic record, no cultural or sporting code record in the school, but were made members of the LEB, neglecting and isolating black excellent students who were doing great in extramural activities and sport. And we raised a lot of those concerns at that time, but it did not get anywhere. To a point that, but to a certain point, there was even a friction and a fight between the black and the white students in school. But we're able to contain that. And then I did history and I did very well. So it's only after we had matriculated, by the way. It's embarrassing, and I always say this, that in high school we were learning because we wanted to pass.
Yes.
Not genuinely because we wanted to have a great sense of understanding in terms of what is it in the curriculum that must advance our level of consciousness.
Okay.
So speaking of decolonized education, there is also speaking of the manner of approach that we would have as a society towards education. Because we just see it as compliance, and it's malicious compliance more than it is about self-elevation of academic understanding and consciousness. So I did not know what COSATU was. Yes, I knew that it's COSATU.
Actually, you were not familiar with anything in terms of politics, anything that revolved politics.
No.
Yeah.
And I did history and I did it very well.
Yeah.
We learned so many things, Gabo Verwoerd, Libo Herzog and all of that, but we just could not comprehend what that meant in terms of the space that we now find ourselves in, and in terms of how history actually evolved to legacy of the current living conditions. We had no idea, and it spoke of our lack of consciousness. So with that, me not understanding even after matric what genuinely COSATU is, was I started familiarizing myself, and I started getting closer only after high school to a very dear friend of mine, who is now the council secretary here in the city of Ekurhuleni.
He's a friend of you, ne?
He's a friend of mine,
Only squeezana in or he worked hard to reach that position.
No, he deserves it. He's got merit to be where he is. He's a former youth directorate. He's a former senior manager in the legal department in the city. And he's an advocate by profession now.
That's great.
So we had those conversations, and at the time he was a member of the youth league. So that's how I then got absorbed into
politics.
Mainstream politics and understanding structures and understanding what genuinely activism was all about. This was like in 2009, 2010. Era.
Okay, that's great, Chair Dunga. But now you are in a landscape of politics. So I just want to know, politically, who groomed you? Because now you are in politics, but there must be someone who groomed you in politics. So who's that person who's grooming you in politics?
Yeah, he was one of the people who initiated an interest.
The same friend.
Who initiated.
His name is?
Modise Kwetle. Yeah, advocate Modise Kwetle.
He's the one who's now grooming you, and then...
So, grooming speaks to building and, sort of marshalling your line of thought. No, he initiated and put me in the space in terms of the understanding,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But having gone into the space, I genuinely had no one who was inspirational
Yeah.
within the ANC Youth League movement. There was no one that one could identify in terms of capacitating your line of thought and giving it direction. So genuinely it was just about self-consciousness and elevation of thought and
Yeah.
understanding. But when I got into the economic freedom fighters, I drew a lot of inspiration from the commander-in-chief.
Yes.
And having understood the role of the media in more than anything is to put you in a much more closer relationship to people that don't
Yes.
know you or you don't know them.
Exactly.
So I can say to you that at this point, my politics are groomed by the Commander-in-Chief, the Deputy President of the EFF, Floyd Shivambu,
Yeah.
and to an extent, Commissar Nkululeko, with not having had to have a personal relationship with them. But because there's so much content in terms of social media
Yes.
content, in terms of media output from their offices and how they interact and how they do things, makes us be able to use that to groom ourselves, and that's what we use more than anything.
Okay, but then even if you were not in politics, but I do believe that you were a voter. So I just want to understand, before you joined EFF, and then before you even being part of EFF, you were voting which political party?
So I was the first time voter in 2014 because I had never voted before
In your life?
in my entire
You started
life.
to be a voter in 2024 and you were voting
In
which party?
2014.
Yeah.
And I was a member of the ANC Youth League at the time.
Yeah.
And a member of the branch executive committee in Ward 43.
Under
in
ANC?
Don Park. Yeah.
Oh.
But under the Youth League. I've never been a member of the ANC, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I was a member of the Youth League.
Yeah.
So as I was standing in queue, I told the secretary of the BC back then, of the ANC Youth League, that, look, I've taken a decision. And remember, we've always had continuous fights in late 2013 towards 2014. I mean, early 2013 towards the late. In our entire year, all of our zonal meetings of the ANC Youth League were fighting the removal of the then President Julius Malema.
Oh, yeah.
It
was
was
2012.
we sort of formed part of that faction. Yes, it was 2012 or so, but we sustained the fight even in 2013 within the ANC Youth League to say, this is unnecessary. Why are you doing this? Let's go and speak to this guy. Let him come back in. We always had that view.
You also participated on those communications.
Yeah, collapsing meetings of the ANC Youth League.
Oh, yeah.
Staging a walk in December.
Yeah.
We staged a walk from Gauteng home. We wanted to form part of it all the way to the conference in Bloemfontein, walking as a form of defiance against the decision that was taken.
Okay.
So consistently we had that approach. So when he formulated and they formed the Economic Freedom Fighters in 2013, we still had that persistent approach in ANC Youth League meetings.
Yes.
As a faction to say, we're not agreeing to the decision of the organization in terms of this. So he formed the organization along with the collective in July or so. And then I told my friend, I said, in 2014, now, I'm going to vote the Economic Freedom Fighters.
On that point, then what made you to be part of EFF? Why you joined EFF? You personally, you joined EFF on what base?
Yeah, so as a first-time voter, voting for the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Yes.
In 2014 elections, I disengaged from the ANC Youth League there and there. And the persistent approach to accountability and holding the executive accountable, the militancy in which they did the advancing of the people's discourse in parliament. Because at the time, you could only identify the EFF in parliament. Yes, it was growing structurally underneath, but people found it difficult to understand where can we get this party, where its offices and so forth. Ne? You only knew De Korte Street in Braamfontein, or you knew the EFF in parliament at that time. And so the persistent understanding of what they were saying in parliament made us to now go online to start checking
who's this fellow, who's this party?
What is this? Because we understood who the commander-in-chief is. We understood who the deputy president Floyd Shivambu is. But who is this who is now you've got Dr. Ndlozi here, you've got Hlengiwa Mkhaliphi. Who are these people? And how do they match? How do they speak like this? What is this? What is the advancement of what they are trying to raise? And we started researching, and the first thing that we got on the internet at that time was the 7 cardinal pillars. You know, and
can you state those 7 cardinal pillars?
Yeah, the expropriation of South African land without compensation for equal distribution of land that's not in use, the nationalizations of mines, banks, and other strategic sectors, the capacitating of the state to ultimately even look at the abolishment of tenders, the provision of quality and free healthcare, housing, sanitation, and education. The massive infrastructure development with the prospect of creating millions and millions of jobs and to close the wage gap between those who are rich and those who are poor by actually stabilizing and also the freedom of unions, you know. The next aspect was the development of the African economy and the use of state-owned enterprises, particularly such as your ESCOM, your
Transnet, maybe.
SAA, Transnet, you know, to advance development in the African continent, because so that you also open up trade and so forth, and with that would also entail the easing off or the taking down of borders, so that there is easier transition of transportation of goods and people for social, cultural reasons, but also for economic activity, and open, accountable, corrupt-free government. And people that are not victimized by state forces. So those were the 7 cardinal pillars
that, the ones that inspired,
that captured our imagination. And we saw it fit that there is no any other organization that best describes how we are going to achieve economic emancipation of even ourselves, because at the time you are unemployed, you have no access to education, you've got a youth league that at one stage spoke of the very same elements, but they were no longer advancing that. They were more just self-obsessed, obsessed about getting into governance and accumulating a little bit of wealth there as petty bourgeoisies who were emerging and so forth. So they no longer had the interest of advancing the discourse of people, and that's what made us shift.
I do understand you and I got you. So, but Dunga, can you tell us how did you manage to become a chairperson of Ekurhuleni? Because there were many people, but at the end of the day, you were the one who was chosen to lead the region of called Ekurhuleni in Gauteng. How did you manage to lead that region?
So the Economic Freedom Fighters has what they call the RPAs, the Regional People's Assemblies, and they take place every 3 years. So when we formed part of the EFF in 2015, late 2015, we engaged extensively in assisting the organization to mobilize society, to mobilize communities, to vote for the EFF in the 2016 elections, because these were the first local government elections that the EFF would be participating in. We did that fully, with no reservations, no limitations in terms of our work. And the branches of the EFF, when an opportunity arose and came that we had to identify new leaders for the RPA process, which is in line with the constitution of the EFF, in 2018, they felt that we were in a better position to create a different pathway of growth for the economic freedom fighters in Ekurhuleni, who were identified by branches and branch delegates in that particular conference, and were then voted for. I know that we were contesting the then sitting chairperson, Fighter Mampuru, but ultimately, as a disciplined cadre, we took the outcomes of the conference as they are, and we moved since then.
Okay, you are now a provincial chairperson of Gauteng under the banner of EFF. So, since then, what is your future plans about this province of gold as a provincial chair?
It begins and ends with the EFF being victorious in 2024.
Yeah.
It begins and ends with us replicating and sustaining all the hard work and the working outputs that we've always had consistently in delivering a successful victory in 2024. It begins with the elevation of the consciousness of society, interacting with society, driving them to fully understand that the EFF is the only solution to the many problems that we are witnessing in Gauteng. So to put it in short, we're here to ensure that we deliver an economic freedom fighters government in Gauteng.
Okay, but then if it happens that you become a mayor of Ekurhuleni, what's the first thing you will change as a mayor of Ekurhuleni, sir? Even though you're provincial chair?
When the EFF takes over mayorship in Ekurhuleni, the first thing that we'd have to do is to do an intense cleanup campaign of the city. The city is filthy. There is no waste collection. And where there is, it's in your suburban white dominant areas. There's a lot of illegal dumping areas and dumping sites, which creates a health hazard.
But mostly in squatter camps.
Yes, definitely. And that's as a result of a lack of political will. Nothing is stopping this particular municipality from putting skip bins there and having those skip bins collected every 2 or 3 days. Because the population density of our townships as compared to suburban areas is not the same. You have more people staying in a smaller area in townships, meaning that they've got more waste output than you would have had in suburban areas, where averagely a house in suburban areas is nothing less than 1,200 square meters with roughly about 3 or 4 people. In the township, you are having 300 to 400 square meters of a house with about 6-7 people staying in it. So their waste output is much more than you would have had in your suburban areas. So what do? Increase the number of days of waste collection in the townships. And then, so as opposed to going once a week, you must now go twice a week because you've got twice the volume of people than you would have found in the suburban areas. So that's the first point.
That's your mandate.
That's the first point. You would have achieved a clean
the health status.
And that would then correct the health status, because there's a lot of airborne diseases. There's a lot of waterborne diseases. Secondly, you then fix your stormwater drainage facilities, because we are at a very high risk of floods and flooding in the city of Ekurhuleni, not only because of the sinkholes and the dolomitic land that we reside in, but because of no proper drainage systems. And you have a proper drainage system that can drain water out. It is the very same. Water is extremely sacred. It's a natural resource. You channel that water that then gets cleaned up and be brought back into the system, while losing way too much water that we could have sustained into the grid. But as a result, we have not done so because of a lack of a proper drainage system. You fix the sewage systems. There's so much spillages. It has aged. It has not been corrected for the longest of times. Where there are pump stations that work, right? You go past those pumping stations, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. You can't bear the smell passing there, you know? That's as a result of aged infrastructure of sewage systems. So you need to correct that. And all of these things, they speak of a direct impact to the dignity of the people of Ekurhuleni. Because no one wants to live in a place that is filthy. No one wants to live in a place that is not conducive to your own health standards. 24-hour clinics are possible. But then, already in the city of Ekurhuleni, we are sitting with about 9 clinics. At least in the immediate, we've got 16 mobile clinics. Use those mobile clinics to operate 24/7. In the meantime, while you are correcting the infrastructure of all of the clinics that are stationed, that are already built, use them. You already know, with the Department of Community Safety and the EMPD, along with the SAPS, which areas are most likely for you to ascertain as to whether are cases of gender-based violence, cases of grievous bodily harm or assault, you know, which areas are densely populated and a health hazard by nature, where people would require health assistance more than anyone. Assign those particular areas these mobile clinics during the night. Why can't it be done 24 hours? It is possible.
But you just mentioned on the base of health, because you mentioned the clinics. You now have an MMC of health here in Gauteng, and then you've been telling us through the massive message saying, if we get if we're in government, if we take government, we are going to make sure that the clinics operate 24/7. Then is that going to happen under the leadership of the MMC, who's under your own command here in Gauteng, but under Johannesburg municipality? Is that going to happen?
It should. And we're going to push for it. Understand that the MMC of the city of Johannesburg, who is tasked with health and social development, perhaps the only limitations, but because we've got the political will to institute this particular position, would be a frustration from the Department of Finance, who would not want to allocate funding, or the Department of Corporate Shared through Human Resource, who would not want to allocate workers for you to be able to open it up for 24/7. We are in understanding that the governance that exists, particularly in the city of Johannesburg, is a one of multi-political organizations who have formulated an executive, and the EFF is a part of it. But on a daily basis, are going to continuously advance the program of action of the EFF, and also giving consciousness to these political organizations in terms of understanding and knowing and respecting the importance of particularly 24-hour clinics that must be instituted. What we've come to realize is that as well, the responsibility of now 24-hour clinics actually resides with the provincial government. So there must be a intergovernmental link between the local government with the provincial government in terms of the execution of 24-hour clinics. But it is possible because we've got the political will, and we're going to do everything in our power to ensure that our clinics are running 24 hours.
Mr. Dunga, you are the commander of this province, And then as a commander of this province, what is your say about the foreign nationals in Gauteng, specifically in Gauteng, because you are leading the government of Gauteng as a provincial chair. So what is your say about the foreign nationals in Gauteng?
Well, there's nothing much to say because foreign nationals come in all forms and sizes. We've got Chinese foreign nationals, we've got Mozambican foreign nationals, we've got Belgian foreign nationals. You go to Bedford View, it's got a very high level of Czech Republic foreign nationals. You know, they come in and they engage in business activities, and the EFF has an internationalist outlook that unfortunately for many counter-revolutionary forces do not understand that there's no society that can exist in isolation. You do require, because there are certain elements of skill, there are certain elements of consciousness, even ideologically. There are certain elements of labor intensity. There are certain elements of resource that you would require outside of yourself for you to actually progress as a society and as a people. So you look at Gauteng in itself, it's got the highest contribution in terms of gross domestic product output. With that being said, it could be as a direct contribute of the very same foreign nationals that we speak of, that there's an economic activity that is happening, and it is so greatly invested in development, in that Gauteng is able to produce way above the national average outside of everyone, and is the highest producer towards the South African GDP. And that is great, and that is well, and speaks of a well coordination of economic activities. But scientifically, South Africans are in majority. We've got 58 million people who are South African orientation, who reside in South Africa. So there's no logic in saying that we've got lots of foreigners, because once you say lots of foreign nationals, you're trying to create an assumption that they are in majority, which is nothing further from the truth.
But then majority says if we can stop this thing of supporting foreign nationals, that's where the people will start to support you in terms of vote. And that's the only way for you to be able to lead this government. Only if we can stop supporting the foreign, the agenda of foreign nationals in South Africa.
Well, once again, there's no science in terms of majority. Who is saying that? And those who are saying it are in minority, but just get elevated by media, because it seeks to identify the EFF as an organization that is not grounded, that is not understood at a ground level, which is also extremely false, by the way. In the founding manifesto of the Economic Freedom Fighters, I also even just comprehensively gave you the 7 cardinal pillars towards economic emancipation of our people. Is that you have one that speaks of the massive infrastructure development of the African economy and African economy, you know, and that's what we strongly believe in, is that there must be a greater interaction, there must be a greater economic understanding amongst particularly African states, and to ultimately look at having one Africa, no borders. And the lack of borders does not equate to a shift and a movement of everyone else into South Africa. everyone in the African continent. That's not true. Let's take, for example, Gauteng, right? You've got Gauteng, and there's no border between the Free State and the Eastern Cape and the Northern Cape and the Western Cape and Limpopo, right? People migrate for economic opportunities and whatever the reason might be, go back to where they reside in your Limpopo, Northwest. You still find people everywhere, right? So with that logic and that understanding, it is extremely illogical for anyone to think that South Africa is the hub of where the rest of Africa wants to come in. The living conditions of people of Botswana are much more greater than the ones that South Africans find themselves in.
How?
Yes. I mean, you don't have to look as far as any other thing. Look at the value of the pula versus the rand. The pula is much more greater.
Greater than rand.
Yes, it is higher than the rand.
Oh.
The people of Zimbabwe, by the way, are more educated than South Africans, and they've got more access to education than South African people. So Zimbabweans do not come to South Africa to get educated. They come here educated already.
They actually come
and
here
they come here
for
to offer
pastures.
skills. And they come here to offer skills and to disseminate the information that they would have received from the great schooling and education infrastructure that exists in Zimbabwe.
But then,
so I'm just making these two examples. In Lesotho, they've got a much more greater water infrastructure than the rest of South Africa. We are currently suffering from water shortages, by the way. In just 2 years ago, the Western Cape did not have water. Cape Town did not have water. They had to go to extreme levels of water restriction. Now, if you cut here in Gauteng, by the way, we are under water restriction just a few months ago. But then you have Lesotho, which is not too far from South Africa, who has the capacity to give us the water. Why can't it be that we are actually getting the water from Lesotho to actually come down all the way into Gauteng, and then we get all the water? The living conditions of our people would have risen. Industries are able to manufacture. Agriculture is able to function. We need to coexist with everyone. And it can't be that we ourselves as South Africans, we see ourselves as much more greatly superior than everyone else, when indeed we are lacking very much far behind.
Okay. Marishun ke moetapele wa EFF mono provinceng ya Gauteng ke Nkululeko Dunga. Ye ke #reality with Ashley. So Nkululeko Dunga, which province is showing EFF a massive, which region is showing EFF a massive support here in Gauteng under your own watch?
The entire Gauteng is under the EFF control. But if you are asking from a statistic point of view, Siribeng region.
Siribeng is the one that is leading in terms of support.
Siribeng region is leading. It's followed by the West Rand region.
But before, how many regions do we have here in Gauteng?
We've got 5 regions.
Named?
It's Siribeng, West Rand, City of Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and Tshwane.
Okay, then you said the one that is showing an EFF here in Gauteng, a massive support, is Siribeng.
Followed by West Rand.
And
then the city of Ekurhuleni.
And
followed by the city of Johannesburg, and then Tshwane. But this is obviously based on the previous election statistics.
Yes.
And not just maybe daily response by society.
Okay.
But if you are looking at daily response from society, you cannot remove the city of Johannesburg, because it's got the highest number of people who reside in Gauteng, and they're standing at almost 4 million or so.
Okay. So next day is national election, and then on top of that, do you see EFF under your own watch taking the government here in Gauteng on a next year as national election?
Definitely, we do not contest to become number one. We prepare our race in that we are going to be victorious and win. And we do everything in our power to prepare enough, but equally at the same time we do everything in our power to sustain the interest of those who are extremely marginalized in society. We do everything in our power to ensure that we do not divorce ourselves from the elements of being selfless as an organization. So it might come across as though some of the things that we do are inspired by wanting to change the electoral outcomes of elections. No, we do it from a genuine point of heart. So when we go out there and we engage in the Andrestatane cleaning campaign, it's not because we are starting an election campaign. No, it's a genuine self-love and a love for the people.
Like as you said earlier on, saying the first thing is to make sure that the people of Ekurhuleni, they live a better life in terms of health and those things of cleanings. Okay, then I get you on that one. But then academically, what do you have in terms of education? You personally?
So I've got, I matriculated in 2006 or so, and I went to the University of Johannesburg. I was doing marketing.
Which branch in University of Johannesburg?
Banting, ne?
Banting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to Banting, unfortunately dropped out.
You were doing?
I was doing marketing management at the time.
Okay.
So there are many personal factors that led to my dropout. And then thereafter, I'm busy with the degree in public management and administration, which I plan to be completed by next year. Regenesis Business School.
What?
Regenesis.
Oh, Regenesis, the private school, the private college in Sandton. You are doing public administration and
public management and administration.
But so far you don't have any qualification?
Beyond matric, no.
Okay. Because I saw that the commander, you've been saying all fighters must go to school, you see, and Definitely. Then you are a chairperson, yet you don't have any qualification, but it's better because you're currently working on something.
No. Definitely all fighters must go to school. It's a directive of the EFF. We are in school. So we've conformed ourselves to the documentation of the EFF that compels us to be in school. We do have the bare minimum requirements, which is a matric. We actually did very well in matric. I think one of the subjects I got was almost a distinction. It was 2 minutes to distinction. So I did not want to do a rewrite because I was fearing that they will take down my marks more than they would give me. I was just 1% out of it. We used to be in top 10s, Chief, in terms of academia, particularly matric. I think I have about 2 or 3 certificates of being in the top 10. And this was a former Model C school, so you can imagine for you to be at that high level of academic record amongst white kids who do not have to look after their siblings and clean the house and cook and do all these other things cause when they get home and all they are focused on is their work is something to marvel. But we would tell society that at every single opportunity you get educated.
Last month you were in an exam room. I don't know, it's somewhere around Ekurhuleni if I'm not wrong. How the test you wrote, because it was led by the deputy president of EFF together with Mbuyiseni Dlozi. It was out of the marks. It was out of the test you've been writing on a political education.
It was out of 400.
How many marks do you got?
We have not received any.
But when you look at yourself, you feel like you got how many marks?
We'll be confident that we have passed because we know at least the policies of the economic freedom fighters.
Yeah.
Were able to write them and respond to the questions.
Yeah.
So there's no way we would have failed that. If there was ever a time we would fail such a test,
Yeah.
You would have failed leadership, and the most basic thing for you to do is to resign from the position.
Really?
Yes.
For the fact that you failed
Yes.
the marks of EFF school.
Yes.
So tell me, Mom Kaula and Mom Sonia, are they also going to write those tests?
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't do.
But you listen to those women and how they articulate the challenges of society and how they equally attack and deal with the policy perspective and direction of the EFF, even in their own language, unconventionally to the thoughts of society in terms of who is best to articulate the position of the organization, and you genuinely listened to them, you would understand that they're articulating the position of the EFF more than most people can ever do.
But you
Or
are
actually even more than most academics, if they do exist in the South African society.
okay. But you are quite sure that Mom Kaula can topple those marks, can be a best together with Mom Sondi.
I'm not a spokesperson of either of the two, but I'm confident that they do understand the EFF policies and they do understand challenges of society.
Okay. There's been an allegation that you and the Provincial Secretary General of EFF here in Gauteng, you don't have a nice relationship. Is that true? That you and the your SG, the Provincial Secretary General, you don't have a nice relationship. Is that true?
So we do not have a Provincial Secretary General in the EFF. There's only one Secretary General, which is Commissar Dlamini.
Okay.
In the province, we have what they call the Provincial Command Team.
Yeah.
And in the Provincial Command Team, it's the 25 of us, which is the top 5.
Yeah.
And the additional members who all have a portfolio. So who are you referring to? Our Provincial Secretary General?
The Secretary General of Province, Moshe Koma.
Oh, he's the Provincial Secretary.
Is a Provincial Secretary.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You say Provincial Secretary General. Okay. I've just told you.
Okay, let me withdraw the general, the word general, and focus on the Provincial Secretary there. So the Provincial Secretary of EFF here in Gauteng.
The Provincial Secretary, GPS,
yes. Which is Moshe Goma. There has been an allegation that you and him, you don't have a nice relationship. Is that true?
It's an unfounded allegation. We emerged together. We've always been supportive of one another. We are friends. Even yesterday, we had a social program together. We were together.
Serious?
The entire evening. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's no such.
But
those who seek to advance such are just people who are attempting to be wedge drivers. Can be seen from a very far distance. They can be identified from a long way. There are no differences with myself and the Provincial Secretary. We interact and we do the work of the EFF, and even outside of the EFF, we engage in social programs and of young people.
Okay, thank you very much, Dunga. So, how can you describe your relationship with the Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema, so far?
So our relationship with the Commander-in-Chief is that of work.
Yeah.
The Commander-in-Chief is a workaholic. Works continuously. And
you sound down.
That's how we relate to him.
All right.
So that's for the EFF, and it's also at the same time weirdly, as a father brotherly figure, because he's able to give you personal advice.
Yeah.
Equally as well, he's able to give you political advice. He's also able to give you any other advice. He's receptive, open-hearted, kind leader that time to time when you go through challenges, whether politically or personally or any otherwise, you are able to have an engagement with him, and is able to give you
The direction.
sound direction and advice. So yeah, that's how we relate to him. So yeah, that's who he is, and that's our relationship.
Actually, your relationship with him is more too much on work. The work that the only work of EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters. So in terms of personalities, it's not that much.
We're human beings and we interact.
Yeah.
And I mean, even at a social level, because this is an organization.
Yeah.
So even outside of the organization is, as I said to you, that
Father figure.
It's that father figure aspect of it.
Okay.
But even that is inspired by genuine advice that is giving direction and context to the challenge. So yeah, it's we're brought together. We come into the EFF having found a leader that we subject ourselves to, because this is the front man of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Yeah.
This is the commander-in-chief of all those who are in destitute in South Africa, Africa, and the diaspora, you know, and we rally behind. And the only thing he's obsessed about is the growth of the Economic Freedom Fighters and the elevation of consciousness of society in understanding the challenges we are faced with and how to solve them.
Okay.
So that's
but
our relationship.
We're actually repeating, but I just want to ask you last question. Do you and I don't, is Campbell or what, the mayor of Ekurhuleni, you and her, do you have a nice relationship? You and the mayor of Ekurhuleni is not the outgoing mayor, if I'm not wrong.
The former mayor.
The former mayor of Ekurhuleni under DA. Yeah. Do you have a relationship with her?
A political relationship. Yeah, like we would have with many others. I mean, these are colleagues. We are 224 in total in the city of Ekurhuleni.
Yeah.
The EFF has 31 public representatives in council, and subsequently about 13.5% of the percentage. So you would understand that for you to advance any argument or to advance any policy directive of the EFF, you would have to go knocking in the doors of all these political organizations for support, particularly in council. That's how we got our motions to be tabled and passed through council, because you would have had to have some form of engagement and relationship. But that's just where it ends. It doesn't go beyond that.
But then, do you have a strong belief in the leadership of the new speaker of Ekurhuleni, the law graduate in Thabisen Chivenga? Do you believe in her? Like, do you trust that, like, he can be a good speaker of this metro municipality?
Of course, the EFF applies its mind and its mind fully when it comes to the allocation of responsibility and deployment, and this is no different. She's the speaker of the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Yes.
She was brought in by the EFF, comes from the EFF caucus, and we have the firm belief that she will do a sterling work in terms of giving direction to council, but also inspiring a new era of ensuring that the executive is held to account. And conforming to the standing orders and the rules of engagement of council, and not taking the rejective approach that anything that is inconsistent with what you believe is right, automatically you must be removed from council, so it's to express freedom of speech in the context of being extremely disciplined. And she comes from the school of thought of Marxism, Leninism, and Fanonianism. So she's got a full comprehension of what is expected of her to do to have maximum and optimum output from everyone else in council.
That's great.
So we're confident.
That's great, Chairperson. Ladies and gentlemen, we gave you the provincial chairperson of EFF by the name of Nkululeko Dunga, who gave us his political journey. Then that's how we wrap up the business of our day. This is #Reality with Ashley. Make sure that you subscribe. You also also like, give us a comment on our YouTube channel, Media Totalers. Thank you very much. Stay tuned because there is more to come. Nkululeko Dunga, thank you very much, Chairperson.
No, thank you for hosting us.
Thank you.
It was a genuine pleasure.
That's how we wrap up our conversation. Mwah.